y'all, today I will be showing y'all how to do this look, which is, I would say, kind of a manhua slash doll-like inspired type of vibe. Obviously, it has a lot of elements from douyin slash xiaohongshu makeup, and also I've been reading Heaven's Official's Blessing again, and this is very much inspired by the manhua's art style. Anyways, let's move on to the actual tutorial because I think this might be my new favorite look of all time. I say this every time, but before we do the actual base, you gotta wear some sunscreen. I learned that apparently you're supposed to do 2 to 3 lines like on your fingers. So just imagine that these 3 fingers have lines of sunscreen on them, and that's supposed to cover your entire face and your neck. And lately I've been putting on more sunscreen because I saw what I looked like with the old age filter on TikTok, and I was very humbled. So I think I need to do more skincare wise. I put on some sunscreen earlier, so I'm not gonna put on too much right now. I'll just do like half of a finger. I'm also going to prep my lips, and I'm gonna put on some lip balm. This is my current favorite one. It's from YSL, and it is the Candy Lip Glaze. For primers, I'm gonna use 3 primers, which seems like a little excessive, but bear with me. First, doing a little serum primer all over. I don't like to put my serum primer on like the oilier areas of my face, just like this area, mostly around my nose and kind of towards like halfway through my cheeks, because lately for that area I've been using a pore filling primer. I like to pat it in and then smooth it out with a finger. And lastly, I like to put a green color correcting primer on my cheek area because I feel like that's where I get the most redness, and I also put it wherever I have a pimple. For the base for this look, I like to do a semi-matte foundation, and this is the one that I've been using lately. It's from Makeup Revolution, and it's honestly very good. I'm gonna spot conceal some of my acne really quick. I first use a smaller thinner brush to tap the concealer on the areas that I want, and then I let it sit for a little bit before I blend it out with a fluffier brush, and I just repeat this process. I'm gonna put on some liquid blush first before putting on foundation because I find that that gives it more of a like a blended out, like blushing from within type of look, if that makes sense. I dot the blush on the center of my face, and I like to put it a little bit higher up and not directly on where my cheeks are because I find that this helps create a lifting effect. Then I put on another layer of liquid blush because I personally am a very big fan of blush. I allow the second layer to dry for a little bit, probably like a minute before I start putting on foundation, and I sprayed this foundation with a bit of setting spray first because I'm using a makeup spatula, and I just find that it's easier to apply foundations that are on the more liquidy side. I always use a makeup spatula when I put on foundation because I find that it helps create an even layer, and it also uses less product than if I just use a sponge. When you're using a makeup spatula, make sure that you're getting an even coat of foundation across the edge of the spatula. This just really helps with ensuring that you get a nice and even coat of foundation across your face. And I also use the spatula to put on concealer, and I like to pack it really in the areas where my eye bag is most prominent. Like, you see how you can see the line on my eye bag from the side of my face? That's basically where I concentrate my concealer around, and then I blend it out towards the outer edge of my lower eye area. This Peripera powder is my favorite powder of all time. It's so nice and lightweight, and it has such a lovely finish, and it really just gives that soft and diffused look. And then I highlight my face using a lilac blush. I put it towards the inner half of my cheek slash lower eye area, and I really place it right under my eyes and towards the inner part of my nose. I find that this really helps to brighten up your face, and I think this works a lot better than baking because that's what I used to do, and I just look cakey and flaky. This look definitely requires a lot of blush because I am putting on even more blush right now, and I'm going in with that center shade of the palette I just showed, and I'm using a big fluffy blush brush. This helps really diffuse the blush because I'm using this as a base color, and then I'm going in with, then I am using a coral shade from this palette with a smaller blush brush, and I'm putting this under my eyes and I'm concentrating it there. Then using a light hand, I am blending it out towards the rest of the blush to create a more diffused and ombre type of look. And to make sure that everything is fully diffused and blended, I go back in with that big brush from earlier and I'm going over my cheeks with it to make sure everything's very blended. And then I use whatever blush is left on the smaller brush on my nose. Moving on to contour, I start off by using the lightest shade in the palette to create a base, and I really go ham towards the lower parts of my nose. In the reference picture I use, the bottom of his nose had more shadow, so I followed that as a guide, and I also just basically did what I normally do for nose contour, but I applied more of the product. For the upper part of my nose and into the brow bone, I use a C or backwards C motion depending on which side of the nose I'm contouring. I use a second smaller contour brush and I use the darkest shade in the palette to define my nose contour. I go into the sides of the bottom part of my nose and then I swoop it downwards. I find that adding this extra bit of contour really helps to create more depth, and I also like to emphasize the sides of my nose, but I don't fully drag the brush all the way down. For brows, you want to match your brow pencil to the intensity of your iris color, and what I mean by that is if you have really light eyes, don't use like a black eyebrow pencil. Ideally, the pencil should match your iris color, but I'm wearing gray contacts in this look and I did not have a gray eyebrow pencil on hand, so I just chose a lighter brown. And for how I actually do my brows, I like to extend my tail out quite a bit and I just follow the trajectory of how my eyebrow normally goes. I don't know why that sounds so scientific, but I also just like to make my eyebrows straighter and also keep the front area a bit lighter. Then I am setting my brows with some gel. I like this one currently because I feel like it really just grips onto the hairs and makes everything stay in place. Lastly, I clean up my brows with some concealer, and it's just the same color that I used for my under eyes. And I'm blending that out with that same concealer brush from earlier as well. I always put on an eyeshadow primer before I put on eyeshadow, and I just think that an eyeshadow primer works so much better for making your eyeshadow last than just regular old concealer. This eye look is primarily a lot of browns and a pop of coral, so I'm using this Clio palette, and it's also cat themed! Anyways, first I set my eyes with a color that matches my skin tone, and then I'm going in with this light brown shade, and it's also a little bit glittery, which I think is very fun. And I'm packing this shade across my lid and trying to get an even coat of this color to create a base for the rest of the eye look. Next, to add more depth to my eyes, I'm using the middle shade from my contour palette, and I'm packing it first towards the outer corner of my eyes, and then I'm winging it out ever so slightly before bringing it back in towards the inner corner of my eyes. Then I like to concentrate this shade above the crease of my lid, and I like to really pack this color on because later it will help for another step of the eye look. I also pack this color on the inner corner of my eyes, but not as heavy as the outer corner area, and I'll just drag whatever color remains on the brush across my lid, but I don't pack it down towards the center of my lid because that will kind of close off the eyes. Basically, I just keep on packing on this color towards the outer and inner corners of my eyes, and then I blend it out with a fluffier brush, and I make sure that my outer corner is more intense compared to my inner corner. To emphasize the aeosal, I like to use this neutral brown shade, and it's actually a bit more mauve in person, but you can't really tell on screen. And to do this, I'm using a flicking motion, and I'm applying more pressure on the center / outer part of my eye and then flicking it towards the inner corner of my eye. With this lovely light pinky coral color, I am putting a bit of blush on the aeosal, and I'm first concentrating it on the center of the aeosal before lightly blending it out. I make sure to not drag it all the way across my lower eye area, and you want to make sure to leave some space on both corners. Doing this is so cute, and it really helps add to the manhua character effect. For the lash line, I'm combining these two brown colors, and I'm focusing it first on the middle of the lash line before dragging it out. And I like to leave a little space at the outer part of the lash line. This will just help to create that more dull-eyed look. Using whatever is left on the brush, I drag it towards the inner corner of my eye, and I leave a space there because this will really help to open up the eyes. And I'm using the pointier side of the brush to do this so that it looks cleaner. And I'm using whatever is left on that brush again to run along the center of my aeosal to create more depth. And of course, I gotta draw on some lashes on the bottom, and I think I probably should have used a brush liner instead because this liner was really hard to control, and it was also my first time using it, so I was definitely struggling a bit. Then I put an eyeshadow that's the same color as my skin tone on the outer corners of my eyes to soften up the lashes. Using that same dark brown color from before, I put it on the center of my lash line before lightly trying to blend it out. And I think you can tell by now that a very common theme for this look is placing colors in the center and then blending it out. I'm using that same color once again to draw on a wing, and I'm actually just doing this to create a guideline for when I use a liquid liner, because I always mess up when I use a liquid liner. And once again, I am just running whatever is left on the brush along my aegyo salve. And for the liner, I am using a dark brown color because a black would be much too intense for this look. And I really like this one in particular because it's a brush tip, so it really allows you to create that very sharp wing. And I think drawing on a little outline first with some eyeshadow definitely made doing eyeliner a lot less painful. Anyways, I never start off by drawing a big line directly. I just kind of build up the eyeliner as I go. And with this mauve brown color, I am creating a shadow for the eyeliner, and I just do that by following along the eyeliner and then winging it out. And then I am also extending my crease outwards, and I make it parallel to my wing. And I repeat the same process on my other eye, and for the crease, I kind of just follow along the line of my crease. I also add a very tiny little wing in the inner corner, and I was trying to show y'all a trick to really get into the inner corner, but I accidentally stabbed myself in the eye. But moving on, I highlighted my inner corners with this matte beige shade, and because this color is a bit lighter compared to the rest of my eye makeup, it really helps to brighten up my eyes, and I like using a lighter matte eyeshadow more to highlight my inner corners rather than a shimmer. And of course, I gotta add some glitter because I always need at least a little bit of glittery eyeshadow in my eye makeup, and I'm just placing this nice champagne-y shade on the upper part of my lid. Basically, I just place it above where my crease line is, as you can see there, and I don't like dragging it all the way down because I find that it creases easily. Then I pat this chunkier glitter on top for some extra sparkle. Whenever I wear falsies lately, I don't put on mascara because I find that's kind of unnecessary, but I still curl my lashes and I put on some brow gel instead. Literally after every time I put on mascara, my eyelashes fall out, so I've just been trying to avoid mascara lately. And of course, I put on some falsies, and I love these ones because they look very much like drawn on eyelashes, and they are my favorite lash right now. I even out the colors on my lips first by patting on whatever foundation is left over from my puff, and I'm using this nice nude corally shade for a base, and I'm contouring my lips with it just a little bit. I did 2 layers of this lip tint, and I like to concentrate my lip tint around the inner part of my lips and also on the cupid's bow a bit. I'm using a second darker lip tint to create an ombre effect, and I repeat the same process I did for the other shade, but I also draw a line down the center of my bottom lip. This bit of lip contour will help make your lips look extra juicy and plump, and I'm deepening the contour of the sides of my lips with this color as well. Last, I put on lip gloss on the sides of my lower lip as well as the center of my upper lip. And this is optional, but I also like to add on some beauty marks as a final touch. Y'all already saw earlier, but this is the completed look. Alrighty y'all, this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed today's makeup tutorial. I feel like lately I've kind of been on a makeup-y / beauty guru type of mood because I don't know, I've just been experimenting a lot more with my makeup. If you decide to try out this look, I would love to know. But thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.